welcome to Wrestling and Everything, Coast to Coast, with your hosts, Buddy Sotello, Esquire, Evan Ginzburg, and Mike Lano. Would you like to introduce our guest for tonight, Evan?
Absolutely. We have distinguished film director Jason Brasier, who's done the documentary The Flying Greek on Mike Pappas, who I have fond memories from the old WWWF when I was a kid, and we are honored to have him on. And tell us about the movie, Jason. It's an exciting project, and you've been playing film festivals.
Yeah, well, it all kind of started off with Manoli appearing on a local talk show that I was running camera on, and they started talking about all his career and what he was doing. And I was thinking, I'm a big wrestling fan. How have I not heard of this guy in my own backyard?
Right.
And I finished up another project, and I just ended up calling him and said, hey, I'd kind of like to do a documentary on you if you're interested. And it just kind of took off from there. And we just kind of took our time with it to really, I think the thing that took the longest, if I'm thinking correctly, was trying to find footage of him wrestling. And we kept getting kind of brick-walled by people, and we never heard back from WWE. But all of my detective work kind of led me to archives that had been bought out by WWE Network, and we never heard from him, which is unfortunate because I would love to have some footage of him.
The courtesy of a call would have been nice.
Yeah, they just ghosted me. I didn't even get a response, and we even had a lawyer contact them, and still nothing. And we were just trying to be professional about it. And but we got creative with it, and there's a great scene that is probably one of the funnest things I've ever filmed. And I got him in the ring, and he really puts me through the ropes.
There you go.
But yeah, we've been in the Santa Fe Film Festival, and we've entered into a few others we're waiting to hear on, and we're going to be doing an online screening here soon, and some other screenings coming up we're trying to set up.
That's great. And Mike, for the fans who are too young, I'm 103 years old. I totally remember you, and I loved you on all the WWWF tapings and such. Tell us a little about some of the highlights of your career.
Some of the highlights of your career?
So, well, like everything was a highlight. But at that time, when I was wrestling, everybody was kind of excited, because when they saw me, they said, what is this guy doing over there? He's really too small. Why is he up there? And then when I started working, everybody loved it. But I had a lot of problems. Timing, the timing is very important. Like most of the people, the bigger wrestlers, they didn't want to put me over. They were embarrassed, which, like wrestling, everybody thought it was fake. It's never fake. You're working very hard. Everybody's working very hard. It was really very hard work. But everybody was very, they didn't want to make people believe wrestling is not fake. You know what I mean?
Kayfabe.
Always hard time
What is known as kayfabe.
Yeah. And then even the wrestlers, they wanted to convince people so much that it's real. But it is real. What do you want to convince about? I mean, it's not fake. I mean, you get hurt, you get body slammed every night.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree with that. As a manager, I've been tossed around plenty myself. I've never had to hold a whole match by myself. I've been clotheslined and body slammed and avalanched and all that stuff. Even though it's coming, it still has the impact, and still, and I never had to carry a match. That's one thing that I think is amazing, is to sit there and take that punishment, day in and day out, for 10, 15 minutes or an hour at a time, as you probably had to. Can you tell our fans how you got started in professional wrestling, how it all began for you?
Yes. Well, when I was in Greece, I was boxing.
So where in Greece are you from?
I'm from Rhodes, Island, the Colossus of Rhodes. I'm the little Colossus.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the big Colossus.
I went there on my honeymoon. So
I'm sorry?
I went to Greece on my honeymoon. So
Oh, really? Did you
yes.
have a good time? Where did you go?
Oh, it was crazy. But let's go. Let's talk more about what's
said, "Let's
going
go."
on.
I have very hard time hearing because of the speaker here. Uh, yeah. Anyway, I was boxing. Everything I did, it was by. I never really. How can I explain it? I never wanted to be in boxing, but I had a good body. I was small, but I had a good body, and everybody who was looking at me saying, You're supposed to be something, you know." And then some people came from Athens and they wanted to start boxing, and they asked me to do that. So I did that. I started boxing, and I was very, very good, very fast. But I had to quit because my mother didn't like it. Believe it or not, here I am, everybody was making fun of me, but my mother was very sick. So I was afraid she might get more sick. So I quit. Then when I was 18-year old, I immigrated in Australia. I went to Australia and I didn't do anything for a while. I worked in the jewelry business. But then I was getting kind of bored. And I said, my God, I have to do something. So I started boxing there again. So without telling my mom, that's funny. So anyway, I would start boxing there. And then, like I said, I was very good. I won all my matches. But again, I didn't have a car and I was going by the tram to work. And it was a Greek guy in there. And he looked at me and he said, hey, you look pretty athletic. Would you like to wrestle? I said, no, I don't like to wrestle. I'm boxing. So finally, I decided to do that. And I did. He trained me and I started wrestling in Australia. I was trained by the police, the trainer.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was wrestling like part-time, you know what I mean? I never thought it would be professional wrestling.
Interrupt. Was this during the Jim Barnett? And I'm Mike Lano. I've been shooting wrestling for the magazines since the 60s, but was it for the Jim Barnett promotions? Were you there at that point prior to the Vince McMahon Sr.? So I'm talking like Mark Lewin, Spiros Arion.
Yes, Spiros Arion was a big card over there. At that time, it was not really, Barnett wasn't there yet, but there were some Greek promoters.
Mm.
And that's when I wrestled like once in a while. It was some big Greek wrestler, Iakovidis was his name.
Oh, yeah.
And they had wrestling there, and that's when I started. I wrestled. There were a lot of policemen also. And that's when I met a lot of wrestlers from United States when Jimmy Barnett came. So Jimmy Barnett and Doyle, I worked for them a couple of times. I did, like in Melbourne, when Bill Dundee, the superstar Bill Dundee. Well, we started at the same time. So when I was in Melbourne, I wrestled with Bill Dundee a couple of times. But then, like I said, I never thought it would be professional wrestling. You know what I mean? So I was in Australia, then I went to Greece. I went back home because I wanted to go home. So when I went home in 1968, I opened some business there. I didn't wrestle or anything. I had a business. But the military government came and my business wasn't going very well. So I met my cousin. He was from the United States. And I said to him, I would like to come to United States. I heard so much about the United States. I like to come there someday because it's closer to Greece. So I can go to Greece more often. Because Australia was very far, So anyway, I went to Greece. My business didn't go very well. So I decided to come to United States, but they wouldn't get a visa. So I went back to Australia again. So I went to Australia. From there, I came I met a lot of wrestlers when Jimmy Barnett was there. I used to go to the wrestling room. I met like Bruno Sammartino was coming there, Angelo Savoldi, Mario Milano, you know, all these people.
Yeah.
So when I came to the States, I was working in the jewelry. And I asked my cousin, I said, look, I used to wrestle professional. Is there any way you can tell me how to get in touch with the office? He said, sure. So I called the office in Washington. And I said, I used to wrestle in Australia, and I met a lot of wrestlers there, and I would like to wrestle here. I talked with Scotland, Arnold Scotland. And at that time, they had the office in 42nd Street, downtown in Manhattan.
Yeah.
So they gave me a couple of tickets to go and meet the wrestlers. So I went there, and they look at me and they say, you wrestle? Yeah. Well, you're too small. I don't think we can use you here. There's no way. There's no way. Just forget it. And then I said, well, but I would like to wrestle, you know. I mean, they said, well, you know, it's very hard. But one of them told me it was a place in Mexico, my size. So I started in Mexico.
Wow.
Calls Luteroth, Salvador Luteroth. You know, I always had the guts, you know. I didn't have any agents or anything, but I wanted to do it so bad. I called Luteroth and they say, send me some pictures. So I sent some pictures and they said, okay. So I went to Mexico. I wrestled there for about 7 months. I was like the wrestler of the year. Then somebody told me about Nick Gulas in Tennessee. They say they can use you there because they use small guys. So I called.
The paychecks were small
Nick
too.
Gulas. I'm sorry?
The paychecks were small too. Nick was infamous for that.
The paychecks were small.
The what?
The paychecks were small.
Yeah, very small.
Yeah.
Very small, believe me. Anyway, so when I called Gulas, I told him, he said, how much you weigh? So I told him, at that time I weigh 175 pounds. That's it. You know, I told him that. He said, well, yeah, we can use you here. What name you want to use? I said, well, my name is Emmanuel. My name is Emmanuel Savinos. We cannot use that name. They cannot say that in Tennessee.
Yes.
So anyway, he said, yeah, you can come. So he gave me the working visa. So I went to Tennessee, and that's when I started in Tennessee. I was working there every day. At that time, it was 2 out of 3 falls. Sometimes it was working like an hour.
Wow.
You know, 45 minutes. So I got a lot of good experience. And from there, I went to New York. And that's when I met Vince McMahon, Sr.
Right.
Vince McMahon liked me a lot for some reason. But the most of the wrestlers didn't, because I was too small. You know what I mean? They didn't feel like, they didn't think I belonged to the wrestling business.
You were the Rey Mysterio of your day.
You were the Rey Mysterio of your day.
Huh?
You were the Rey Mysterio of your day.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was, you see, that's what I mean. In timing is very important. If it was now, a lot of people, now even wrestlers, they told me that they started wrestling because of me. I didn't know that. And thanks to this guy, see, when I quit wrestling, I had nothing to do with it. Because I was very bitter because of all these reasons. It was very good. I was very popular with people. I was, you know, like everywhere I went, I was really very popular. But I was very bitter because the wrestlers didn't really treat me well.
Mm.
And I'm still bitter. So when I quit, I didn't want to hear anything about it.
Wow.
I forget it.
Mike,
And
what
I
year
never
did
thought-
you stop? Because I seem to recall when you started for Vince Sr., wasn't it like 1970, 71-ish?
Yes, 70, 71. And that's when Andre the Giant came.
But
Pedro
let's
Morales was the champion at that time. I traveled with Pedro many times. He was very, very good man. And Manuel Soto and the manager.
Monsoon.
No, the big
Oh,
guy.
Lou Albano.
Lou Albano.
Yeah, Lou Albano, very nice guy. I traveled with him a lot of times. Very, very, very nice guy. And I worked with his partner too.
Tony Altamore.
Yeah, Altamore.
Manolo, let me ask you, and then I'll throw back to Ev, obviously. Was it Nick Goulas or Vince Sr. that came up with the Mike Pappas name?
Yes. Anyway, to finish the story, when I came to the States, I went to the hotel where they had the office.
The Holland Hotel? The Holland Hotel. Wasn't it the Holland Hotel?
Holland Hotel?
No. Holland Hotel was in New York. I'm talking in Nashville.
Okay.
It's not there anymore. I can't think of the name right now. But I went to check in, and I said, Emmanuel Savenas. They said, we don't have anybody Emmanuel Savenas here. And they said, we have somebody, Mike Pappas. And I said, well, it must be me, you know. And that's the name he gave me, Mike Pappas, because the people can say the name much better. And anyway, I stayed there for almost a year, working every day. I have no complaints. I never made any money. I was starving. Believe me. You know, it was really awful. Sometimes I didn't even eat for 3 days.
Wow.
I don't know how I kept wrestling, you know. And I never, even though I wasn't eating very well, I was always in good shape, and I worked very hard. Even if it's one person, I work the same way like when there was 10,000 people.
How did you survive that? How did you survive that time if you were only eating once every 3 days? How did you survive?
The boys, you remember, the boys would eat tuna and bologna.
It's a miracle. I don't know how I survived. They used to have some hamburgers, they call it, I don't know the name, I forgot, but there was like a quarter of, very small. And then I used to eat those hamburgers, you know what I mean? It was really tough. But like I was working every day, but it never made any money.
Mm. And Mike, you were an early high flyer. In that era, it was just Victor Rivera, Eduardo Carpentier, yourself. There weren't a lot of high flying wrestlers. Tell us about that.
Well, at that time when I went to New York, all the big guys, they didn't do really very much of that.
Right.
Like you say, like when Antonino Rocca or these people, they were there, they was doing that. But then they stopped. Right. What they did was mostly like kicking and punching. It was not even wrestling. You know what I mean?
That was the problem with the territory. It was known as a big man's territory, Vince Sr.
It was known as a big, it was known as a big man's territory.
Yeah. And then, like I said, when I went there, when they saw me, they said, "Oh my God, this little guy, what he's doing there?" But then when I started working, everybody liked it. And then they didn't see that since Antonino Rocca, and that's why I got over really well.
Yeah. And Jason, how did you get involved in doing the film? Out of all the topics, it's an interesting subject that you chose.
I guess you're good. You know, like I said, I've been a big wrestling fan since I was a kid. I've watched it growing up, and I have been doing a lot of cutting my teeth with what you would call web series or short form television, and I've been wanting to do a documentary at that point, and I was trying to find a subject, and it just kind of fell into my lap when he showed up on that talk show I was working on, and you know, it wasn't just about making a wrestling documentary. The more I got to know Manoli and hearing his story, it became more about just what professional wrestlers go through personally. Yeah. And the wrestling's there, but my focus with it, I wanted to make it more. It's a biopic. It's about the trials and tribulations of just trying to live life, and he just, you know, between being a jeweler and, you know, trying to wrestle and raise a family. And to me, that was what really made the story, I felt, impactful, because I mean, I've watched many wrestling documentaries, and I really just tried to hone in and try to just make it as, you know, as real as I possibly could, and do some things differently. Like I said, you know, he said he wanted to show me some of his moves in the ring, and I was like, I will gladly get in the ring. This will be awesome, because God forbid, and I know people look down on this on some levels, but some people, and it's in the film too, but my friends and I would get together and we would actually put on wrestling matches, and we would actually write the scripts. We would choreograph everything. And that's how I got into directing. I would direct the matches, and there's some footage of that in the film to kind of go along with what we talk about when I'm in the ring with him. And so it was kind of a cool full circle moment when he's beating the crap out of me in the ring. Yeah. And he clotheslines me, and he looks at me, and I was like, well, I thought I had done something wrong. I was like, oh crap. And he goes, you took that fall pretty good. I was like, well, I had to remember about 3 seconds before, because all I knew from attempting to wrestle, if you will, back when I was a kid, was I needed to tuck my chin and I needed to land a certain way on my back. And so I would watch YouTube videos online back in those times of stuntmen falling. And that's how I kind of tried to teach myself how to fall so I wouldn't hurt myself. And so for him to sit there and go, that was pretty good. I was like, you know, for a guy who's been in the ring with Randy Savage and some of the biggest names in wrestling history, to sit there and tell me that, that made my day.
And tell us about some of the highlights of your career as a filmmaker.
Well, for me, this has definitely been a big highlight too, because not only did we get, you know, working with Manoli, we got to work with Medusa, who narrates the film. Yeah. And that was awesome.
How did that come across? Because she's Italian American. I know Debbie. So how did you even approach her, or how did that come about?
You know, I had been working. She had contacted me through Leilani Kai, and I can't remember how that even happened, but I just know one day I got a phone call, and I was like, hello? And she was like, hey, this is Medusa. And I was like, oh. And we basically were trying to make a documentary on her, and we raised the fund. We made a video to raise funds for it, and unfortunately, it didn't reach what we needed to, but we're taking the long route and trying to make that documentary for her still. But we became really good friends from that point on, and I was like, I really need a narrator for this. And my thought was twofold. One, her name's Medusa, Greek mythology, even though she spells it differently because it's for Made in the USA, Greek mythology and Medusa, flying Greek. Okay, there we go. Then the other thing was, it was just like the opportunity to work with a Hall of Famer, you know, and for her to tell Manoli's story, I thought was just perfect. It just kind of fit. And I gave her a call, and she said, absolutely. And she came to the premiere and everything. It was really fun. And, you know, Deb's really just a great gal all around. And, you know, my daughter calls her Aunt Deb. So that tells you how close we are, like almost family now. And so having her be a part of that project and agreeing to it was great. And, but yeah, and other highlights, I mean, I'm doing a documentary series called My Ozarks that I'm working on with a nonprofit out of Southeast Missouri, and we're actually going to film another episode next weekend. And I've worked on the Mystery Hour, which is the show that he was on. That's an Emmy award-winning talk show. Worked on crew with that, and there's a great clip from that show that they let us use in the documentary. It was great. And, you know, I've ran the gambit from commercials to infomercials to music videos, short films.
Eclectic.
And, yeah, I try to do quite a lot. I try to keep up with it.
There you go. And Buddy, can you show the trailer?
Yeah, I was just about to say, I wanted to, before we get too far into the interview, I wanted to have people check out the clip. So give me a moment here and let me cue it up.
Okay, no problem. We're going to show the trailer.
While we're waiting, Jason, I have ties, folks that I report to, because I've freelanced for the company, WWF to WWF since '83 with their first magazine series. So I could have probably helped you. So maybe next time, because Medusa's footage, whether it's ECW or, WCW.
Oh, here we go.
And WWF, they're going to have it all there. So
Really? Okay. Well, we might talk more here because we are going to do a DVD, and I would love to be able to have a match of Manoli on the DVD somehow.
All right, let's roll here with the clip.
I thought people wouldn't remember me. You know, I thought it was just passing through. But I learned that afterwards. I'm very surprised. I had so many wrestling fans. They even stop now after 40 years, and they stop in my store and telling me I made their life better. This is Manoli Savinas. I've been in Springfield for 40 years, and I own a jewelry store. A lot of people don't know, but I used to wrestle professional, and my wrestling name was Mike Pappas.
He was our heroes. He was the guys that we was rooting for. He was the guys that made us believe that we could do anything we wanted to do. I mean, you saw him get in the ring against guys that weighed 150, maybe even 200 pounds more than him, and he would go in there and fight the fight. I mean, that encouraged you to do whatever it was that you wanted to do. You believed that you could do anything, that you could be anybody.
Not a lot of guys did the flying maneuvers, the aerial maneuvers that he did. So yeah, Mike Pappas is part of that lineage, the early lineage in the WWWF of flying wrestlers.
With Valerie. I was gone for 2-3 weeks, so I was missing my wife and the baby. But since I had the family, now I'm talking about, well, you know, maybe it's time for me to do something else. My name is Manoli Savinas, and I was Mike Pappas, the Flying Greek.
Very good, impressive.
That's great. That would make me want to see it.
Well, good. I'm glad.
And Manoli, Evan and I very, very definitely remember you. Obviously, you know, very iconic, very super popular. But he always got a big reaction. You know, the guys, particularly on TV, didn't always get the kind of reaction, the baby faces that he did. You know, unless you were Bruno or Pedro or so on. And he was over big time back in our day.
Now, who was that?
You were over big time back then.
Yes.
Yeah, you were. You were over. You know, you going against like Bruno Sammartino and those guys. You had this big of pop as.
Yeah. And you know what? I want to thank this guy because he brought all these memories back, and a lot of people, like the person you saw there talking about me, he lives 500 miles from here, and he came here.
Wow.
He almost cried when he met me again. He used to watch me when he was young with his grandfather, and he got mad one time, and he wanted to come and kick the Germans' ass
Yeah.
because they was beating on me. And when he came here, and that's what made me, you know, next week I'm going to be 81 years old.
Wow.
Because of this guy, I feel like I'm 40 again. You know, because all these compliments I get, all the people they come, even Ricky Morton, you know, the Rock and Roll Express.
Yeah.
He used to watch me wrestle when his father used to referee, and he did all the moves I did. And he was telling that everybody. He said, the reason I'm in the business because of Mike Pappas. He didn't know my real name. And that really, because of Jason, he got all these memories back. I am very young again. I'm ready to go back to wrestle.
That's beautiful.
and maybe I can wrestle with the Rey Mysterio. And that's what a lot of wrestlers tell me now. He said, if you were there now, see, that's why timing is very important. And sometimes you're there the wrong time and the wrong place. It doesn't matter what you're going to do. You're not going to make it. That's it. But I'm very glad I'm still around, and I'm very touched with all the people. They still remember me, and I appreciate it very, very much.
When the film is out on DVD and Blu-ray, you guys should work the wrestling convention circuit. You'd be surprised how many people, remember, because I clearly remember Mike Pappas from back in the day.
Yeah, that's definitely on the agenda, and especially too with some screenings. I'm hoping to get some unique screenings if there's any conventions that are within a decent driving distance for us and all that.
There was one that went on this weekend, the one in Jersey, the 80s convention, the 80s WrestleCon. It was huge. It was like Friday, Saturday, and today.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah. If we can link up, Evan and I will definitely keep you abreast of everything. I just want to throw in, Manoli, I forget when you stopped working for Vince Sr., but I just wanted to ask if you were either the TV tapings in Allentown or Hamburg when John Tolos came in, the Golden Greek John Tolos from my office, the LA wrestling office in '74, or if you were around when Spirosarion came in for Vince Sr. in '75. So John Tolos, these are two Greek legends. Tolos in '74, and then Spiros in '75.
Yeah, Spirosarion, he was a big name in I'm going to tell you a story about this now. When I was in Australia, Spirosarion wasn't very happy with Jimmy Barnett. So he wanted to wrestle with a Greek promotion. So he left Jimmy Barnett and with a belt, and he wanted to wrestle with Iacovidis. And that was at the Olympic Stadium at that time. The place was sold out, but Spirosarion never showed up because they scared him probably, and he didn't want to come. That night, the Greeks, they almost killed us.
Wow.
Because Spirosarion didn't show up, and they came and they didn't want to give him their money back, or it was a big deal. So thank God we had some policemen, like I told you when I started wrestling there, there were a lot of police wrestlers, and they took us out. The Greeks wanted to kill us.
Wow.
You point to the thing that says card subject to change. You didn't point to that and say, every wrestling poster has card subject to change.
Every poster has card subject to change. He's asking if you pointed at that.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of people don't know this story. So Spirosarion didn't show up, so they almost killed us that night. So there was no matches.
Wow.
But the police took us all out. And then I remember I talked to Jimmy Barnett, and he said, "Where is Spirosarion? He took my belt. I want my belt back." I said, "Why are you telling me that?" You know what I mean?
Wow.
That's a story a lot of people don't know. You know what I mean?
Can you tell us a story about working with Andre the Giant? What it was like to work with Andre the Giant?
How was Andre the Giant?
How was it to work with him? Yeah.
Well, it was the nicest guy you ever meet. Andre the Giant was very good. He was always very humble and he was a really good friend of mine. He even came to my home when I live in Kansas City. And I'll tell you another story. My son, at that time, was 3-year-old. So I went to pick Andre the Giant from the hotel and his manager to take him to my home. My son didn't want to come in the car. He got scared of the giant. And I didn't know why. I couldn't figure it out. He was scared because he was so big. So when he came to my home, my son, he never wanted to take a nap. But this day, he told his mom, he said, "Mom, I want to take a nap."
The manager was Frank Valois, right?
But I saw under his face, when my son didn't want to come in the car, I saw his face, how he was so bitter. You know what I mean? Because my son was scared. But at that time, I didn't realize either. You know what I mean? It was so funny. So anyway, that's another story.
Manolo, you were living in Kansas City. Did you work for Bob Geigel? I don't recall.
Yes.
Did work for Geigel.
I did very well there because I had good experience. Like I told you, when I wrestled with the big guys, sometimes they didn't want to put me over. But then when I got the good experience, I didn't care. I was getting over anyway because I could wrestle. You know what I mean? And then I had more experience, and then I could take care of myself. But long time ago, I was kind of not scared, but I wanted to do what they want me to do. And I didn't have the drive like I did in Kansas City. Yeah, Kansas City, I did very well.
Okay, back to, I just want to make sure, did you have any contact with John Tolos or Chris
Yes,
Tolos?
I wrestled with him in Louisiana, but I never had contact. I remember he used to like to eat raisins. He said that's how he's in good shape because he ate a lot of raisins.
Yeah.
And I wrestled with him in Louisiana.
I asked that because in '74 he came in to do office work. That
Yes.
was why he wrestled Bruno in the main event at MSG, but it was more behind the scenes stuff. And he jobbed to Bruno, with a backbreaker, but they did at least put him over at Allentown and Hamburg TV. So I don't know if you guys came.
Yeah, I was there. I was in New York when he came. As a matter of fact, when he came to Madison Square Garden, he was a Greek guy who wanted to get in. And he wanted John Tolos to get him in. And then somebody came there and said, "Can I get him in?" "Yeah, you can. You can give him 2 tickets." So he did, Yeah, I remember, I met him when he came to the Madison Square Garden. Yes, I did.
Okay, because he could speak Greek, so I don't know if you guys spoke Greek at
Well,
all.
not very much. He spoke like me, broken English. He spoke broken English. He was from Canada. And that's another funny story. They were the brothers. They were the biggest heels, like in Canada. Everybody was scared of them. But then they go to the market on their mother every Sunday.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? They
Yeah.
take their mother, and everybody was telling me that. They say, "Well, here you are, there's John Tolos and Chris Tolos. They wrestle on Saturday night, and then on Sunday, they come to the supermarket on their mother."
Yeah.
Because Chris was a gourmet chef.
Everybody was kind of,
Chris Tolos.
you know what I mean? That's a really funny story.
Jason should know, they were known as the Greek-Canadian Wrecking Crew out of Hamilton, and there were a lot of Greek wrestlers that came out of there. But Chris Tolos was a gourmet chef. It's probably why he was going to the market with his mom. He wrote a number of cookbooks.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He wrote a number of cookbooks.
Yeah, very, very nice guy. I wrestled in Canada too. I wrestled in Montreal for Quebec for Yvonne Robert Jr.
A little bit later on. Yeah, because they had the battle of the Bachans Promotion Grand Prix against the Rougeaus La Lutte International. So they had a huge territory war, one of the biggest in wrestling history there in Montreal. A little bit before Yvonne Robert Jr.'s promotion.
I don't remember what I remember was Tarzan Tyler was the booker. And I remember that Yvonne Robert, he came to New York to pick up talent, and he picked me up. He wanted to take me to Canada and be a partner with Gigi the Greek. It was a good combination. And I went there, but when I went there, Yvonne Robert sold the promotion to somebody else. And Tarzan Tyler was the booker. So he didn't use me very well. So I stayed like 3 or 4 months, and then I left. I was there a lot of times.
I had another question that was, and it's a common theme of Evan's film, 350 Days. From the clip that you have, you said that you had to miss out on your family a lot, and there was a lot of stuff, that family time that you missed. You want to elaborate a little bit more about that, because it is a common theme.
You want to elaborate more about how it was being on the road and missing your family?
Well, it was really, it doesn't matter what anybody said. Wrestlers at that time, it was a very boring life. We used to travel a lot. Like even when I was in Oklahoma, I used to go home once a week. And then I go back, and then I go back again and see my wife on Saturday, and then I leave on Monday. It was very lonely life. You spend a lot of time in the hotel. I mean, you're working out, you are doing really well, but it was very boring, very boring. It was awful.
Didn't you go and work out with Bruno, though? You worked out with Bruno, probably, lifting weights and stuff.
Work out with Bruno Sammartino.
Yeah, Bruno was very, very good person. Yeah. And they, as a matter of fact, they used to call me the small Bruno because I was small and I had the same build, you know. And they called me Bruno, the small Bruno.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, 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 very nice guy.
And not to take Evan's question from him, because he asks this usually, and that is, do you feel like it was all worth it? Like the missing out on your family and all this other stuff that you did to be part of something so rare and all the people that you worked with. Was it worth it to do what you did?
Well, what it is, to be honest with you, wrestling made me I know how to deal with people. I learn a lot of things, and I'm not going to change it. You know what I mean? Like, this is part of my life, and this is part of your life, makes you what you are. And yes, there were a lot of disappointments. Like when I quit, I was very bitter, and I didn't even want to talk about the wrestling. That's how bitter I was. But that was my life. And I realized when I had my business, when I started the business, wrestling helped me a lot because I knew how to, not to manipulate, but I knew how to deal with people. So wrestling was to me, was a very good school. You learn a lot of things.
And can you even just for just a quick minute, explain your business right now to the listeners, just so they understand what you do now.
What you're doing now.
Well, before I started wrestling, I learned how to do jewelry. See, like when I was 12 years old, I was apprentice for making jewelry in Greece. So I learned how to do. And that's when I went back. My mom used to tell me, learn a trade and leave it. When you go hungry, you go back to it again. And that's what I did. You see what I mean? When you have a trade, you can always make a good living. And thank God, a lot of restaurants was telling me that too. Because there were a lot of wrestlers, they couldn't quit because they had nothing else to do. They didn't know what to do.
Right.
Most of them, they had very hard time. But I was lucky. I had the trade, and I started my business in the jewelry business.
All right. Jason, are we going to, I know the film, I don't know what percentage of it is wrestling, but we're going to see these other aspects of his life, the jewelry business, both before and after the wrestling. Are there some other things we see? What else do we see?
Yeah, we touched on everything from learning jewelry. We've even got a photo of him, I believe, early on learning to make jewelry over in Greece. And we definitely show off his skills as a jeweler. So that definitely is showcased in the film. And, we show his family. And, I mean, we really go in depth on a lot of that.
Yeah, when I was in Australia, I worked in the jewelry. I used to make bangle bracelet by hand, everything by hand. Nothing, we didn't have that machine. In Australia, at that time, they lived behind United States like 50 years. It was much, So that's what I worked there in the jewelry business for 7 years. And then I was wrestling part-time, once a month, stuff like that.
Can you tell us where your store is now? Are you in Kansas City or are you in the Northeast?
You're in Springfield, is where you're located.
We are in Springfield, Missouri. It's about 200 miles from St. Louis and 200 miles from Kansas City.
And Jason, you live there too, correct?
Yeah, I'm in Springfield. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So how come you didn't come to my 1991 Sam Muchnick Weekend for the Boys convention that I threw in St. Louis? It was 3-day. Evan came in and helped me out with it.
He was 3 years old then.
Yeah, I was like.
Lou Thez was my MC, Manoli. Thez was my MC. We had Ernie Ladd. We had a bunch of your friends, a bunch of people, Al Costello, a bunch of people, Ox Baker that you knew and loved. But yeah, that was maybe before Jason. No, Jason had to have been born by then.
I was born in 85. I was just probably too young to even know about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Manoli
I was born in 1941.
You look great.
I have been, unlike Russ, I'll tell you, I've been to Mykonos, and it was fabulous, beautiful. All those white, all the structures are white, and with the turquoise beach, it's amazing. You know, the beach is the color of Manoli's shirt right there. You know, the water is beautiful. In Mykonos, in Greece. That's where I've been.
Yeah, I've been to Mykonos also, yeah, and Santorini.
Yeah, Santorini,
Santorini, yeah, that's the best, the best island. Everybody loves it. A lot of movie stars, they go to Greece. You know, they have homes there, not in Santorini, in some other island. A lot of them.
Wow.
Mike, I've never been to Greece, but I saw Bruno wrestle John Tolos and Spiros Arion at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
See, why do you think right now there aren't a lot of Greek wrestlers involved in wrestling? You know, it's the home of where wrestling began, but I can't think of a big Greek name right now involved in either promotion. Why do you think that is?
There's a lot of amateurs. It's not amateurs.
Well, at that time, that's why Bruno was the champion in New York, because there were a lot of Italians. And that's the same in Australia. There were a lot of Greeks. So they wanted to have a Greek champion. You know what I mean? It was always about Greece. But then when Vince McMahon started, it's all American. And then he made it worldwide. Now people don't care if you're Greek or if you're Turk or wherever you are. People like wrestling. It doesn't matter what. But long time ago, most of the promoters, even before Vince McMahon, the promoter was Greek. It was all the Greeks. Everything is changed now. It's everything different.
No, Gus Karras was Greek. He promoted for Geigel. Gus Karras was a Greek American. Did you?
Gus
Karras.
Yeah, yeah. And then the promoter in Kansas City, he was Gus Karras. He was Greek too, with Geigel. Right. They were partners. Yeah, it was a lot of Greeks. Yeah, and then now it's different. Now it's all American. Everybody loves to, even in Australia now, they like the American wrestling. That's it.
We need to, I've already pitched to the people I know at WWE, you know, behind the scenes about Earl Maynard and Dory Dixon, who are amongst the last guys who wrestled for Vince Sr. in the 60s. But I think Manoli definitely deserves to be in their Hall of Fame if he's not already. You know, I don't even think Manny Soto or Victor Rivera, which is crazy, they're not in the Halls of Fame either. But Manoli.
Yeah, sometimes you don't know. You know, you never know. You know, things can happen anytime, though. You know, like I wasn't expecting to be involved in wrestling again. Like I say, because of this guy, and then I was at the Mystery Hour, and then he brought all these memories back, and I'm really so glad I did. At that time, I didn't realize all that. I touch a lot of people's lives, and I didn't realize that. You
I'm very thankful. Start going to these conventions, these fan fests around the country. You really should have gone to the one this weekend, but it's an annual thing. You guys will start going, but like Evan said, when you have a content product out, and you can screen it there and charge people, they'll come and watch it. They'll buy it when it's DVD time, when there's something physical, and of course Manoli can sign autographs, take Polaroids, and he's going to be flooded with tons, particularly in the Northeast. The people that really saw him week in and week out, they will pay top dollar and they'll come out in droves and show him love.
There's a convention in Hamburg where they did the TV tapings in the summer. That would be ideal.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll talk about those conventions, wrestling conventions.
Yeah. Well, you see, like when I started my business, like I said, I didn't even want to hear about it. I didn't want to. They asked me to train people. I said, forget it. I don't even want a poster to put here. Now, I changed. I realized what I was doing was wrong. You know what I mean? I was kind of bitter, but now I realize I was more important than I thought.
There you go.
You know what I mean?
Important enough to have a full movie made about you. Not everybody could say that.
And Evan, don't you think he could bring his jewelry with him, and I'm sure he could double the price, and the fans, the marks would be happy to buy it.
They would. Yeah,
They would.
You know what I'm saying?
Now you
If
can
you
turn
don't
it
buy
back.
jewelry, I'm gonna drop kick you.
There you
You
go.
know, we can do that too. You know, I can still drop kick. You know, like I said, now I'm gonna be next week. I'm gonna be ready to go next to the bars again. 81, like when you're 21 and you go back to the bars. Now I'm ready again.
There you go. There you go. So, Jason, tell us
Yeah.
hopes, plans, schedules for the movie, how people can get in touch with you, how they can find the movie. Give us all the contact info.
Right now, the next showing we're going to do is going to be an online showing because we know there's people overseas that want to see it. And this will be the easiest way for us to make sure it gets seen. I'm working on the details and the date for that. I'll hopefully have that in the next week.
Please feel free to post that on our Facebook page when you do have those details that our fans can check it out.
Absolutely. And beyond that, I'm going to try. I've shown every film I've ever made since I was in high school. Even when they were really crappy films that I made in high school, I have shown them in my hometown theater in Willow Springs. And I've brought films back there over the years, and I want to try to bring this film there this summer if I can. And, you know, I'm going to start looking and talking to some conventions and things like that and try to get some unique screenings. And my goal is to have a physical copy of like a DVD or Blu-ray or something by the fall at the latest.
And any URL, contact info you could give out?
My website, which has Manoli's face on it right now from the film, is flintlocksyndicate.com. That is my production company name. And
pretty cool name. I gotta hand it to you.
Thanks. My wife helped me come up with it.
Tell her she has a Hank. She should get in the name making business then.
Oh, she loves doing that. Ever since I've been
corporate
writing
branding,
scripts, she always loves helping me come up with names and stuff. And yeah, that's my main website. You'll see it because it has an awesome photo from the premiere we had in December. Has Manoli's face up on the billboard and has all my contact information there. Or you can email me at flintlocksyndicate.productions@gmail.com. And there's a Flying Greek Facebook page as well. Just look at Mike Pappas documentary and that should pop up. And I'm on Twitter and on Instagram at Jason Brasier Film. And that's the easiest way to contact me, and I'll definitely get back to people.
So that's Flintlock Syndicate Productions at Gmail, correct?
Yes.
Okay, great.
And you can go to manolisjewelers.com too. And so you can see my business and my lovely wife. She's taken care of me for so many years, 49 years.
Wow.
Wow. Any of the jewelry have little wrestlers? I know that little intricate grappling.
Have you put any wrestlers into your jewelry, like any wrestling designs?
Not yet, but now
mini belts.
I started me, I might do that.
that would sell.
When I got married in New Jersey, and that night I was supposed to be off, but somebody got hurt, and I wrestled in Albany the same night I got married. And I don't remember, one of the wrestlers tried to pick up my wife.
Wow. Wow.
You didn't tell me that story in the documentary.
Yeah, I know.
Reggie Parks, Reggie Parks, the guy.
That's another story, yeah.
Reggie Parks made
then on the way back, we got lost.
Manoli could make wrestling jewelry.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, little miniature replica belts that people can wear on their fingers instead of rings, you know? That we got fans that
little
ring,
mini,
you know, if you don't want to get that ring, do that.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea.
Really,
but right now, I'm going to work on this.
Hey, you know, fans are willing to spend $5,000 for, you know, the full size belts. You make little ones.
It is, I know.
I'm gonna do that. You know,
all right. So I wanted to ask before we sign off.
I never thought wrestling would be so popular.
Oh,
it's very popular. Everybody loves it. Yeah, and this is great. You know,
it's part of modern culture now.
And you guys doing a good job.
Thanks.
Well, we do a good job because we have good guests. You know, the guests make this show what it is, and you've been excellent. I wanted to ask before we sign off here, what lesson, you said that wrestling has taught you a lot of lessons. what lessons are those that you would impart to us?
Don't make Andre.
What?
What is a good? What is one of the biggest lessons you've learned from wrestling that you could share? Don't make Andre mad.
Yeah.
Don't feed him beans.
Beer. Make sure Andre had beer.
Lessons. Well, it was the whole thing was one big lesson. The whole thing, you know what I mean? It was like all of this together. It makes one big thing, you know, like it's part of your life, or there are some things you cannot explain. You know, it's really mystery.
Wow. Well, that's really tremendous, and we really appreciate having you on tonight, and we wish the best for both of you guys, and we want to help to promote your show and your movie. Plus, you know, if you have other movies that are coming up or other documentaries that you're going to work on or other projects or appearances that you're going to make, please run it through our website and our Facebook page. We'd love to help you to promote all that stuff.
Absolutely. We'll let you guys know. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, and nice talking to you guys. I really appreciate it, and keep up the good work.
Oh,
Thank you. Thank you. All right, we're going to hang up on those gentlemen. Not just the three of us. We have about 4 or 5 minutes that we can talk about things that are happening with us and stuff on the wrestling scene. Those guys are great guests. Really love to have them on.
Well, he was, no, Evan knows he was a total legend. Now I do recall he was teaming up with Gigi LeGreek in Montreal for the Vachon promotion, a Grand Prix. He might not.
I'll call him back. I'll get him back on.
No.
Yeah.
But one thing of note today on the CBS Sunday Morning Show, they were talking about the top names people are giving their kids. The third biggest name in the U.S. is
Buddy Sotello.
No, it's Charlotte, and they even said the show from a famous women's wrestler is what they're citing as one of the upticks for that.
Really? So how come nobody's naming their kids Roman?
Well, they were all biblical names. The top 5 guys were names. They were all biblical names. So
I was named after a kid that my mom met in a park. So
Impact Wrestling there's quite a few guys that gave their notice and are leaving. The 2 females from Australia, the former Iconics, then they were called the Inspiration. They gave notice and just said they're quitting wrestling. I don't know if they had a negative experience or what, but Willie Mack gave his notice, and then Jonah, which is, I'm not sure if that's a biblical name, but Jonah gave his notice too, after just a couple of months. So I don't know what's going on.
Impact reminds me of one of those cars that you see driving down the street, and you wonder how it manages to drive. It's missing everything and it just barely makes it. But week after or day after day, you see it keep driving by. Parts are falling off of it as it drives by. I don't know how Impact has survived this long, but somehow it does. How does it?
Oh, it's better than ever, but because it's per diems. There are very few, from what I'm told. Most of those guys are on per diems. And, the money might be low because they're not a billionaire like Tony Khan, but they are getting the beneficiary of Tony Khan's stuff with all the New Japan guys, because you remember New Japan left and didn't want to be part of Access because Access, pretty much owned by the people that own the wrestling company, whatever it's called, Anthem. They said, well, we want you to work and send wrestlers, to Impact, TNA, blah, blah, blah. And they didn't want to do that. And that was like 2 years ago. They lost 2 years of TV, 2.5 years of TV, somewhere thereabouts. And now they had to sort of eat crow, and they're back on Access right after Impact Wrestling on Thursdays.
I was watching WWE Backlash before I came on tonight, and it was basically a WrestleMania rerun. It was the same exact matches, pretty much.
I've completely forgotten WrestleMania. I mean,
was anything good on the show, Ev?
Yeah, Seth Rollins and Cody was very good again, but it didn't have the, gravitas of WrestleMania. It was a rematch on a smaller show and an opening match, but it was a very good match. AJ Styles and Edge was a big disappointment. It was a screw job finish, quicker than the WrestleMania match. It didn't touch it. Ronda Rousey and Charlotte Flair was good, but it wasn't Ric Flair and Terry Funk. It was an I Quit
over on that one? Who went over on that?
Rousey, as you would assume, because it was an I Quit deal, and she's former UFC champion. I don't think that was much of a surprise. What was a big surprise this weekend was Canelo losing. Canelo Alvarez. That was something. Oh man, because he was like the golden boy. He was like Mayweather. This was a huge upset.
Didn't he lose to Mayweather though a number of years ago?
He was a kid then, but he hasn't lost in 9 years, and
right.
And all the odds makers didn't give the other guy a chance, and the other guy just dominated. It was one.
It's such an upset you barely remember the guy's name of the
Bivol from Russia.
Yeah, it's another sign of why boxing really is challenged to try to come up with the next great name that people are going to get excited about.
Well, Canelo was like the number one guy, and really Tyson Fury is the guy everybody knows, but he's already heading towards the tail end of his career. And the other match I saw on Backlash was Omos and Lashley, which the guy's green and awkward and hesitant.
And Lashley isn't going to make you look good anyway. He needs someone to make him look good. So you're counting on the wrong guy to carry someone that doesn't know how to work.
Yeah, basically, I mean, what I saw, 2 matches, Rousey's and Rollins and Cody were worth seeing, but it was, it wasn't WrestleMania, and why rerun it 36 days later? It just didn't have like a big time feel to it.
Well, I'm not surprised. There was that survey thing that was posted on the internet that showed that over a 3-hour show, you get 21 minutes of wrestling on your average Raw show.
I stopped watching Raw about 5 years ago. It's just I'm too old to squander every Monday night the rest of my life. I'm just better off going to the gym or watching a great movie. To watch 21 minutes of wrestling interrupted by commercials, and the rest of it is, basically geared towards 8-year-olds or, adults who stagnated at 8-year-old. It's
and in California, it goes up against things like baseball, Monday Night Football, the NBA playoffs. So it's, there's no way that I'm going to not miss that I'm going to miss any part of the Warriors game tomorrow night compared to watching Raw on instead. Now I'll tune into Raw when it's the last half hour, and I'll catch whatever there's the last half hour, but that's probably not going to do much for Raw's ratings, Yeah. And even in that last half hour, I'm shocked that I will only see maybe 1 or 2 matches. Maybe I'll see a total of 10 minutes worth of action in total if I watch for the last hour or half hour of the show. And that hasn't changed in a long time. So anyway, fortunately, we don't have any big deaths to talk about this week, I don't think, in wrestling.
Not that I remember.
That's a blessing.